The last thing Mara Voss heard before the iron doors sealed shut was laughter. Not crying, not prayers, not even silence. Laughter. From the same pack she had spent 23 years cooking for, cleaning for, bleeding for, shrinking herself into nothing for. They thought this was funny. Warden Thresh didn't even look at her face when he cut the rope. She wasn't a person to him. She was a problem, wrapped in chains, dropped into the dark so the real criminals could sleep soundly tonight. The fall lasted 4 seconds. Mara counted them, because counting was the only thing she could still control. She hit the stone floor hard, lay still, breathed in the cold, the rot, the silence of a place that hadn't heard a human voice in centuries. Her wrists were shredded from the chains. Her wolf, the broken, dormant, unshameful thing that had never once answered her in 23 years of trying, was completely silent. Good, she thought bitterly. At least we'll die the same way we lived, useless, together. Then the air changed, not a sound, not a movement, a pressure, like the entire mountain inhaled and forgot to breathe out. The darkness, which had felt empty a moment ago, felt suddenly occupied, aware, focused directly on her. 2 amber eyes opened in the black, ancient, burning, completely still, and deep inside Mara's chest, in that hollow, dead, silent place where her wolf had always refused to wake, something screamed. Hey, before we go any further, I have a bet with my wife. If this story gets 500 new subscribers, she cooks dinner for me every night for a whole week. Hit subscribe and help me win. And drop a comment below too. I want to know what you think is about to happen next. 3 hours earlier, the great hall of the Duskwall Pack was full. Every wolf, every elder, every rank from Alpha down to Omega, all standing in rows, watching Mara kneel on the cold stone floor in the center of the room. She had been dragged from the kitchen at dawn. No warning, no explanation. Just Warden Thresh's thick hand closing around her arm and the words, "You're wanted in the hall." Mara had flour on her hands. She hadn't even been given time to wash it off. High Elder Corvus stood at the front, his long gray robes pooling on the floor, his face carved from stone. He had been elder since before Mara was born. He had buried 3 alphas and outlasted 4. Whatever he said in this hall became law before the echo died. He cleared his throat. Chi Mara Voss, Omega, unshifted. He said her name like it tasted like something rotten. You stand accused of stealing the sacred moonstone pendant from the pack treasury. The room erupted. Mara's head snapped up. What? The pendant was found hidden beneath the floorboards of your sleeping quarters this morning, Corvus continued, completely unmoved. Do you deny this? Yes, I deny it completely. I have never even been inside the treasury. I don't have access. The evidence speaks otherwise. Mara scanned the room desperately. She was looking for one face, one person who knew her, one person who would stand up and say this was wrong. She found Seraphine Dalt instead. The beta stood near the front row, perfectly dressed, perfectly still, watching Mara with calm dark eyes and the smallest smile in the world. But a smile so small that only someone looking directly at her would catch it. Mara's blood went cold. You. Seraphine held her gaze for exactly 1 second, then looked away, as if Mara was already gone. Theft of a sacred artifact carries only 1 sentence. Elder Corvus announced to the room. The ancient death. The silence that followed was the worst sound Mara had ever heard. Not one wolf in that hall said a word. Not one. The cave was not what the stories described. The stories said the ancient lichen was a mindless beast, a monster born from the first days of the world, kept alive by old magic and older hunger. Something the pack used as an execution method because no blade was savage enough for certain crimes. The stories said it killed everything it touched. What the stories did not say was that it could stop. Mara pressed her back against the cave wall and watched the darkness move. It was massive. She could feel its size before she could see it, the way the air shifted and compressed as it approached, the way the ground under her knees trembled slightly with each step. When its outline finally emerged from the black, her mind refused to process what she was seeing. It was not just a wolf. It was something older than wolves. Bigger. The shoulders alone were the height of a full-grown man, black fur so dark it seemed to swallow the faint cave light. claws that dragged faint lines across the stone floor without effort, the way a person trails their fingers along a wall. It came toward her slowly. Mara didn't run. There was nowhere to run to. She just watched it come, jaw locked, hands flat against the stone behind her. Ayman thought very clearly. This is how it ends. In the dark. Alone. For a crime I didn't commit. The beast lowered its head. Its muzzle stopped 6 inches from her throat. She felt its breath on her skin, warm and deep, like wind rolling out of something vast and ancient. Its amber eyes were level with her face. Close enough that she could see the vertical pupil contracting. Close enough that she could see something in those eyes that had no business being there. Intelligence. It inhaled. One long, slow, deliberate breath. And then it did the last thing on Earth Mara expected. It went completely still. Not the stillness of a predator preparing to strike. Something different. The stillness of something that has been searching for a very long time and has just, finally, found what it was looking for. The amber eyes changed. The burning feral fire in them flickered. Something underneath it surfaced. Something that looked almost painfully like recognition. A sound came from deep inside the beast's chest. Not a growl, not a snarl. Something that sounded almost like a word being remembered by a mouth that had forgotten how words worked. Mara's broken wolf, silent for 23 years, slammed against the inside of her chest like a fist against a locked door. The beast opened its mouth. Its voice was ruin and gravel and something beneath both of those things. Ancient, fractured, like a sound climbing up from the bottom of a 1,000-year well. Queen. The word hung in the air between them. Mara stopped breathing. The beast stepped back, one step, then another, and then something began happening to it that Mara had no framework to understand. The massive frame shuddered. The black fur rippled. The enormous outline of the creature seemed to compress and fold inward like a storm collapsing into itself. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. When it ended, a man was standing where the monster had been. Tall, dark-haired, built like someone who had been carved rather than born. He stood with the careful, deliberate stillness of a person who had just been handed their own mind back after a very long time without it, and wasn't entirely sure yet how it worked. He was looking at Mara with those same amber eyes. She didn't move. "You're real," he said. His voice was rough, unused, like a door opened after centuries. He said it quietly, not to her, to himself, like a man confirming something he was afraid to believe. "You're actually real." "Who are you?" Mara asked, and her own voice came out steadier than she felt. The man looked at her for a long moment. "My name is Kael," he said. "I was the first alpha of this territory. I built the laws your pack lives under. I carved those runes into this floor with my own hands." A pause. That was approximately 1,000 years ago. Mara stared at him. "The mate bond," he continued, "dies when one half of it does. When my Luna was murdered, the bond shattered. Without it, the man dissolves. Only the wolf remains." His jaw tightened. "For 1,000 years I have been a beast with no mind and no name, waiting in this cave because the old magic promised me one thing, that her bloodline would return." His amber eyes moved to the birthmark behind her ear. "It kept its promise," he said quietly. "Mime, you kept its promise." Mara's hand went instinctively to the crescent mark she had hidden under her hair her entire life. The mark her mother told her to keep covered. The mark that had made older wolves in the pack go quiet and look away whenever they accidentally saw it. "I'm an Omega," she said. "I've never shifted. I'm nobody." Kael looked at her with something that was not quite a smile and not quite grief. "You are the direct bloodline of the first Luna," he said. "Your wolf didn't shift because it was waiting for me specifically to wake it." He paused. "You were never broken, Mara. You were just too powerful for anyone in that pack to safely contain." "Give me your hand," Kael said. Mara looked at him. "Why?" "Because what happens next is going to hurt," he said plainly. "And I don't want you to go through it alone." That was perhaps the most disarming sentence anyone had ever said to her. Not "trust me," not "it'll be fine," just a quiet, honest warning and an offered hand. She took it. The moment their fingers connected, the runes on the floor blazed gold. The warmth started in the birthmark behind her ear. It spread down her neck, across her shoulders, through her chest. Not painful at first, just a deep building pressure, like something massive pressing against the inside of her ribs from within. Mara's broken wolf wasn't broken at all. It had just been waiting in there for 23 years, growing, gathering, becoming something far too large and far too ancient for a standard pack hierarchy to contain. And now? And with Kael's hand in hers and the mate bond snapping into place like a key turning in a lock that had been rusted shut for a millennium, it answered. The light that came out of her was not gold and not silver. It was both, pure and blinding, shooting outward from her skin in waves, cracking the cave floor beneath her knees. Mara heard herself make a sound she had never made before, something between a cry and a howl, something that echoed off every cave wall and rolled upward through 1,000 feet of rock. When it ended, Kael was on one knee in front of her. His head was bowed. "There she is," he said softly. Mara looked down at her hands. They were trembling. She could feel everything. Every wolf in the pack far above, every heartbeat, every lie, and every buried secret in the Duskwall Pack radiating down through the earth like signals she suddenly had the antenna to receive. She could feel Seraphine's guilt from here. It tasted like cold iron. She could feel Elder Corvus's fear. It had been building for years. And above all of that, sharp and clear and certain as anything she had ever known, she could feel the mate bond between herself and Kael, solid as bedrock, old as the mountain itself. "What do we do now?" she asked. Kael raised his head and looked at her with 1,000 years of patience behind his eyes. "Now," he said, "we go home." Quick pause. "I have a bet with my wife. 500 new subscribers from this story means she cooks dinner for me every night for a whole week. If you want to see me win, hit subscribe right now. And drop a comment. Are you Team Mara, or are you already in love with Kael?" It began as a vibration. In the great hall of the Duskwall Pack, wolves looked up from their evening meals and frowned. Cups rattled on tables. The enormous chandelier overhead swayed gently. Seraphine Dalt set down her wine glass very carefully. She had been watching the entrance to the underground tunnels since sunset, waiting for the sounds that always came eventually. The distant impact, the silence that followed, the confirmation that the problem was solved. Those sounds had not come. Instead, the mountain had begun to shake. "What is that?" someone asked behind her. Seraphine said nothing. A young Omega near the door made a small frightened sound. "My wolf," she whispered. Something's happening to my wolf. I can feel it." The pressure hit the entire pack simultaneously. Not pain. Something far more confusing than pain. An ancient authority pressing down on every wolf in the Duskwall territory, a frequency they had no name for because it hadn't existed within their lifetimes. The old power. Seraphine stood up slowly from the table. Her hands, she noticed with cold displeasure, were shaking. Below the mountain, in the tunnels carved 1,000 years ago, 2 pairs of footsteps were moving upward. One steady and certain. One slow and deliberate, carrying the weight of 10 centuries. And between them, rolling ahead of them through the rock like a wave before a storm. A presence so ancient that every wolf in the Duskwall Pack felt their own wolf go very, very quiet. Yeah, the way wolves go quiet when something is approaching that is so far above them in rank that every instinct they possess simply stops arguing and bows. Elder Corvus rose from his seat at the head of the table, his ancient face unreadable. "Seal the Great Hall," Seraphine said sharply. Corvus looked at her for a long moment. "No," he said quietly. It was the first time in 15 years he had said that word to her. The tunnel ended at a set of iron doors. From the other side, Mara could hear the muffled sounds of the pack. Movement, voices, the low vibration of several hundred wolves trying to understand something their instincts understood long before their minds did. She stood in front of the doors and took one breath. Behind her, Kael placed a single hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to be what they made you," he said. "No, you only have to be what you are." Mara thought about 23 years of being invisible. 23 years of being the girl who never shifted, never mattered, never spoke too loudly, or took up too much space. She thought about the young girl she had failed to defend 3 years ago. The girl who left the pack broken because Mara chose safety over courage. Not today. She raised both hands and pushed the iron doors open. The great hall went silent so completely that the sound of the doors striking the walls on either side seemed to last forever. Every wolf in the room turned to look. What they saw was not the chained Omega who had been dragged out of the kitchen that morning. What they saw was a woman whose silver-white hair was lit from behind by old golden light, whose broken chains still hung from her wrists like trophies, whose silver eyes swept the room with the calm authority of someone who had been in the dark and come back with something the dark itself had given her. And behind her, filling the doorframe, amber eyes moving slowly across every face in the room, was someone that the 3 oldest wolves in the Duskwall Pack recognized. The oldest of them made a sound that was not quite a word. Then he dropped to his knees. The wolf beside him followed, then the next, then the next. Kael stepped through the doors and let them look. The alpha of the Duskwall Pack, a broad man named Draveth who had held the position for 11 years on the strength of Seraphine's counsel, took 3 steps forward and met Kael's eyes. It lasted 2 seconds. Then Draveth's knees hit the floor. He didn't choose it. His body simply made the decision before his pride could stop it. The instinct was older than his name, older than his rank, older than the pack structure he had spent his life defending. When the first alpha looks at you directly, the argument ends before it begins. One by one, like a slow wave moving through the great hall, the Duskwall wolves knelt. Seraphine did not kneel. She stood her ground in the center of the room, dark eyes going from Kael to Mara and back again, the calculation behind her face still working even now. Even here, even with the entire pack on the floor around her. "This is theater," she said clearly, "an illusion. The ancient is a mindless beast. Whatever you are." "Seraphine," Mara said. "Just the name. Quiet. No anger in it." Seraphine stopped. "I know what you did," Mara said. "I know why. And I know about the treasury. I know about Elder Corvus. I know about the girl you drove out of this pack 4 years ago when she got too close to the truth." She paused. "I know everything. And in a moment, so will everyone else in this room." Seraphine's composure cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. "You can't prove?" "I don't need to prove it," Mara said. "I just need to show it." This was the part Mara had not expected. The power that had erupted from her in the cave, the blinding, floor-cracking surge of the white shift, had left something behind inside her. A clarity. An ability to sense the emotional truth of every wolf around her, layered and detailed, like reading words written in light. Lies showed up brightest of all. She closed her eyes. She reached into that humming silver space inside her chest, and she pulled. The images appeared in the air above the great hall like smoke taking shape. Shimmering, silver-edged, undeniable. Seraphine's hands, moving coins from the sacred treasury into a private chest. Late at night, alone, thinking no one was watching. Seraphine's voice, clear and cold in Elder Corvus's chambers. "The Voss girl is becoming inconvenient. The pendant. Plant it tonight." Seraphine standing at the back of the great hall, watching a young female Omega be publicly humiliated, arms crossed, satisfied, because that girl had asked one too many questions about the treasury accounts and had to be made to leave. The hall watched in absolute silence. Seraphine watched too. Watched herself. Watched 15 years of careful, patient, cold-blooded construction displayed in silver light for every wolf she had ever controlled. Then her face went through several things in rapid succession. Then it went still. Elder Corvus, sitting at the head of the table, looked at his own hands. He said nothing. He simply set his elder's staff on the table in front of him. Slowly, deliberately. The way a man puts down a weapon he has decided to stop carrying. The hall remained completely silent. "It's over, Seraphine," Mara said. Seraphine looked at her for a long time. Then quietly, with the last of her composure, "How did a broken little Omega end up being the one to undo everything I built?" "I was never broken," Mara said simply. "You just needed me to believe I was." The sentencing took less time than the crime. Elder Corvus was not given a dramatic ending. He simply resigned his staff and walked out of the hall under escort, an old man who had made one long, A slow choice over 15 years and had arrived inevitably at its conclusion. There was no fight left in him. Perhaps there hadn't been for years. Seraphine was different. The punishment for deliberate falsification of sacred evidence, treasury theft, and the corruption of a pack elder carried a consequence so ancient it hadn't been administered in recorded Duskwall history. Kael recited it from memory because he had written it himself 1,000 years ago. As a warning to anyone who might one day think that power was worth more than honor, the stripping of the wolf. It happened quietly. No violence, no drama. Just the moon's mark withdrawing from Seraphine's skin like light leaving a room. The subtle silver shimmer that every shifted wolf carries, simply gone. Her wolf, present in that room until that moment, suddenly absent. Seraphine stood very still through all of it. When it was done, she looked like herself, unchanged on the outside. But every wolf in the room could feel the difference. The empty space where her wolf had been was louder than anything she could have said. She was escorted out without a word. The hall breathed. Draveth, still on his knees, looked up at Kael. "What happens now?" Kael looked at Mara. Mara looked at the room, at the wolves still kneeling, at the empty chairs where corrupt power had sat that morning, at the golden rune light still faintly pulsing on the floor, carried up from the cave on their footsteps. "Now we rebuild," she said. "Rank by character, not by birth, not by strength, by what you choose to do when no one is watching." She paused. "Starting tonight." Later, when the hall had emptied and the mountain had gone quiet, Mara and Kael stood alone on the ridge above the Duskwall territory. Below them, lights moved through the pack settlement, life continuing, the ordinary, essential business of people deciding what came next. "What do you want it to look like?" Kael asked. "The new era. What do you want it to actually be?" Mara had been asked what she wanted approximately 0 times in 23 years. She didn't hesitate. "Safe," she said. "I want the ones at the bottom to feel safe. I want there to be no more Omegas standing in a great hall alone while everyone watches and says nothing." Kael was quiet for a moment. "That's what she wanted too," he said softly. "The first Luna, 1,000 years ago, word for word." Mara looked at him, and he was looking at the territory below. Amber eyes calm, something in his face that had been tightly wound since the moment he shifted back to human. Finally, slowly, letting go. "You're going to be extraordinary," he said. Mara looked back at the lights below. "We are," she said, "and that is where our story ends. But honestly, this feels like a beginning. Don't forget, I have a bet with my wife. 500 subscribers from this story, and she cooks dinner for me every single night for a week. One tap on subscribe could change my eating habits completely. Help me win, and drop a comment right now. Who was your favorite character? Are you Team Mara, Team Kael, or did Seraphine secretly have a point? I'll see you in the next story.